Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to photography workshop. This is workshop number 5. We're going to talk about the dreaded manual mode on your camera. You can just see to the left of me, to the right of you, as you look at the screen, the back plate of my Fuji XE1, which I'm going to use to demonstrate how the manual mode works. So first off, to start up, why do we use manual? Well, manual effectively was, in actual fact, if we go back in the day, how all cameras used to work. The exposure would be set by aperture setting and manual setting, usually using a light meter, which they used to hold up to the light. They take a reading using the aperture reading and then setting the shutter speed accordingly on the camera. Now, for everyday use, a lot of photographers would actually, in fact, point the light meter reading to something that was a clear color, usually a green or a gray color, to get a good light meter reading. And they would keep an eye on the way the light was behaving during the day. That's effectively how modern day digital cameras still work. They, in actual fact, don't look at color, they look at the gray. And it's a very interesting point that when you look at, maybe you've taken some photographs of snow scenes, where you'll notice that the snow, which is white, in actual fact has come out gray. And that's because the meter reading on your camera is trying to get a balance. It's trying to get a balance of everything that it sees. And now, of course, you can do spot meter readings, which obviously would make a slight difference in your exposure. But really, at the end of the day, the main basic thing you've got to take notice of is the fact that the camera is looking to get a balanced image based on what it terms as gray. Now, the best way for me to, in actual fact, show you that is by, in actual fact, switching on my camera. And as you can see here, my camera is set up to picture on the back here two white cupboards, which are gloss, so it's going to be a little bit of a reflection here. But as you can see, the camera itself is looking at those cupboards, and is giving a good white showing of those cupboards. Now, if I adjust the aperture ring, you can probably just pick out, if I can just show you here with the actual setting will show, that is basically you're going underexposing the shot by just turning the aperture ring. I'll come back to showing the top plates of the cameras like we've done before. And then, of course, you can go the other way to basically show an overexposed shot. I mainly just need to adjust the shutter speed of the camera to show you an overexposed shot. If I stop it down, then you can see it go to the underexposed, and then bringing that arrow to the center. That's an equally balanced exposed shot, as one would normally term it. And then we'll take the aperture the other way, maybe just a couple of clicks, and it gives you the overexposed image. So what I want to show you then is basically how we actual fact do that. Let me go to screen share for you again, where you can basically see from the top plates of the 3 cameras that I've been using over this period of time, how we in actual fact get to use the manual setting for your camera. Just clicked on the wrong one. Just bear with me 1 second. We'll get to the image. I'm going to have to reload my Google page. So having a bit of difficulty with it today. Pinterest. That should be showing it there. A little bit of a tunnel vision. I hope you can see this. Load my Google page. I hope you're back with me. Just checking everything's working here. So I need to go to screen share. And I'm hoping now that you'll see the, yes, you do. Now you'll see the top plate of the Nikon. Again, we're looking at this part of the dial where it says manual, aperture, shutter priority, and program. As I jokingly call it, the program mode. And we need to set that M to the notch there. We go to, that's the aperturing. We go to the Canon, again, setting it to the M of the dial, putting it to the notch. Now, with the Nikons and the Canons, you basically will have to control, because a lot of their lenses, not all, but a lot of their lenses don't have an aperture ring. So you'll be using one dial mode to dial your aperture, and you'll be using another dial on your, and usually a command dial on your camera to set the shutter. On the Fujis, it's different. On the Fuji, we have a notch to change the shutter speed. As you can see here, this dial here. And then on the lens, you have an aperture ring, and this in actual fact is the ring of the aperture, which I'm using at the moment, the 35mm 1.4. So to put it into perspective for you, if you're looking basically to shoot in snow scenes, you would be looking to basically overexpose your shot. This is because, again, your images, the camera is looking to create a gray scale. So you need to operate the camera by overexposing your shot. Now, you can overexpose your shot in two ways in manual mode. You either open up the aperture. So if you've set the aperture at 5 f8, you can open it up to 5.6 or f4. Or you can go the other way and using your shutter speed on your camera from, we'll say, 1/25th, you open it up, you make it a longer exposure to 1/60th or even 1/30th of a second, if you so desire. And that basically gives you the opportunity to create white. And that is important if you're taking photographs in the snow. You don't want a grey, mucky grey colour to your snow. You want to see it as white. And here's an example taken by Martin Bailey, where he has, and I know he uses this mode quite a lot, to overexpose his shot, basically to create that white effect of the image there on the against the rocks. Another example, he's taken this beautiful shot of the wildlife in Hokkaido, where he goes to quite a lot for his workshops. Again, overexposing the shot to create the white and the whiteness of the bird, and obviously the snowflakes. Another example of getting the white on the bird correct. So he's used a spot metering there on the bird, overexposed, he's got the bird, and he's just allowing the background to basically just turn a little grey. So he's got that difference between the subject and the surrounding area. Let's give you another example. We've seen the birds. One more shot which Martin's used, again, where he's used the overexposed, the white snow, the white clouds, and then of course we got the darker areas of the Mars and obviously the background of the skyline. So I'm going to come out of screen share and show you in actual fact, again, using my camera, how that in actual fact affects the overall image. Again, I'm focusing on the back of my office here with the white cupboards. You can see it's just slightly overexposed, and I can take it further to be even more overexposed, and then I can stop it down. You're just using the aperture ring to create an underexposed shot, and basically that's almost to black. The other way of doing it, if I adjust the shutter speed, as you can see, I'm not touching the aperture here. I'm just changing the shutter speed of the camera to give me my underexposed as it is now to my overexposed for that white area. So that's a good example as regards to why we would want to overexpose the shot when we're using for snow scenes or lighter scenes. If you've got, for argument's sake, someone standing in front of a light window, you want to expose basically to see that person, unless you're taking a silhouette, of course. But if you're looking to see that individual against the light background, then you would overexpose the shot to bring that person into an exposed image. If you stop down by closing the aperture or making it a shorter shutter speed, then you'll make that person a silhouette against a light background. Now that brings me neatly to talk about why do we need to underexpose? Well, underexpose is used by individuals that basically want to keep an eye on the light when they're out shooting, and they want to basically concentrate a lot on the light of something that's hitting maybe a model, or maybe something of interest. Now, for me, just recently, I was on a workshop where we were encouraged to basically shoot at 2 or 3 shots underexposed. In other words, really making it a dark scene, so that we were encouraged to view the images where the light is falling on the model, as in this case. When I was on this workshop with Alex Lambrex, you can see I'm basically shot this 2, maybe 3 stops underexposed, -2, -3, so that the light falling on the model catches the light areas. It catches the windows in the background, and on the shape of her dress and her hair. A little bit on the let me see if I can just blow this up a little bit for you, make it a little bit bigger, so you can see that image a little bit better for you. There we go. This is Alex's wife, Jasmine. So you can see there where we've caught the light on the front of her dress, and on her hair, and on the background, those windows which are catching the light. And I've deliberately done that. If I set the camera to an equal exposure, the camera would have said, yep, okay, I've got that all under control. I know I've got a light area there. I know I've got a dark area there. And it would have evened out the whole, and I would have lost the subject matter and the idea of the image. Let's move on to another one. This gentleman was walking past me in the city of London, the light catching his face. He's deep in thought with regards to how his day's gone. I don't want any other subject matter involved with this image. I just want his face and his frown and his concentration of what happened. Perfectly set up. I shot the image at around about 2 stops underexposed, because there was enough light on his face to work for me, and on his shirt, obviously, but I didn't want any interest in the background at all. Again, another shot of Jasmine, deliberately exposing to show the light of her dress and the shape of her body, and darkening out the whole of the background, and just giving a little bit of light detail on the pavement there from the building. This one is taking it the other way, deliberately overexposed by a stop to catch Jasmine as she walked past. A little bit of blur, but deliberately, this has been quite edited quite heavily, actually, with some work in Lightroom, which we'll come to in another example of workshops. But the main thing was to concentrate on getting some form of showing the warmth of the day. It was a very, very warm day. But I overexposed it by a shot or 2. Again, the camera wants to try and get an even balance of image. It doesn't want to overexpose, but you're forcing it to overexpose by manual control of your image. And then we've got some other examples here of some people I found on there. This was taken by Robert Nault, Winter Walk, deliberately underexposing the shot. But because there's so much light on the outside of the darker areas, he's still got that area of the snow. It's not getting slightly grayed out. So he's done some really good work here. Maybe a little bit of work in the darkroom afterwards, probably. But anyway, it's a good example of underexposed image in the foreground. Another image here, underexposing by Daniel Hansen. Pure black background, but again, enough light, probably with some kind of strobe light to emphasize the foliage of the flower. And this shot by Alex Lambrex, he had to underexpose here because the light is right into the camera, and that's how he got the blacks. If the camera had overexposed totally the other way, he would have lost all this detail. She would have been a silhouette. That's the larger image of Martin's. Just make sure I've covered all the images there. I wanted to show one final image of my set. This was taken of the Mercedes SLS, again deliberately underexposed so that I could see the form of the bodywork, the way the light was catching the body. Quite a lot of texture in the actual bodywork because it was one of those matte finished paintworks, and so you got that from the underexposed. If I'd gone with an overexposed or even an even exposed image, I would have missed all that detail. There's a series of shots which I created, again underexposing, using the light to find a particular color in the image. In this particular case, the lady with her orange shoes or tan shoes and her red hair, reading her mobile phone. Again, underexposing the shot and letting the light do the work on the subject matter. Another example of a person walking away from me, using the light on their shoulders and a dark background. And there's that shot of Alex again. So manual is not the dreaded manual. It can, in actual fact, work for you. The way to use it is basically to use it and to practice with it. And as you can see with these live view cameras now, you in actual fact can see what your image is going to produce by simply looking in the back screen and moving the dials around. And invariably what you do is you create the image on screen and you take it, and that's what you get. Now you can take it into Lightroom or one of your editing programs and make the adjustments accordingly with what you want to further improve on. You may want to improve the exposure, or you may want to bring more color into it there, but that's what the editing program can do for you. But that is the main thing when you're using manual cameras, the camera in the manual mode, I should mention really. It comes from basically the old days when basically they had a set ISO and they used a light meter. Now I mentioned ISO. This is an important thing because, again, as I've mentioned to you before, in Aperture and in shutter priority, you can in actual fact set your ISO to automatic. Now that's great because that means there's another step of the intricacies of these cameras taken out of your control, and you don't want to worry about it. But when you're in manual mode, you've got, again, two options. You can set your ISO to a particular setting, whether you want high grain or low grain, again going back to how old films used to operate, or the other option using manual is to set your ISO to automatic. And I do this quite a lot. Set the ISO to automatic, and it allows you still to basically operate the camera accordingly to what you're looking to produce. Let me just adjust this down to the automatic mode on this camera. Now this is now automatic, set on ISO between 200 and 6400. And you can see basically I'm now turning the aperture, and for about 3 or 4 stops, nothing changes, because it hasn't taken it out of the parameters of the ISO setting which you've given it. Now this is great, because if you are setting your camera to go around do some work, what have I set that for at the moment, just to check? That's at 1/60th of a second. You may want to go around and take photographs at 1/60th of a second for a particular reason, and you can quite happily move your aperture to create the depth of field you want. But your ISO is automatically setting it to give it an even balance. It's only until you push it further out of that range where you start getting an underexposed shot. Now, of course, the opposite happens. If you say, right, I'm quite happy to operate at f4 because I want a shallow depth of field, which we mentioned in aperture setting, you can now move your shutter speed. And I'm turning the shutter speed. It's just changed there. Can you see that? Let me move my arm out of the way, and I've moved it now 3 times, and the exposure of the image has not changed. This is a great advantage for you, because you can be going down and say, I want to take a blurred shot now. dial it to 1/15 of a second, leave it at f2.0 or f4, no problem at all, because the ISO will make the adjustment for you to give the image that you want. You may then turn around and say, well, I don't want that anymore. I want to go to 1/1000th of a second. See if that will go. Actually, just that's gone the wrong way. I want to stop the action now. As you can see, it's just taking it outside. You can make a little adjustment with your aperture, and you've got your speed to do the work that you want. So manual is such a great option for you to use with your camera, using the aperture and the shutter speed to get the balance of the image. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a balance of image. On the ISO set to automatic, it allows you to make those changes. Underexposed, overexposed. If you set the ISO to a specific number, 200 or 400 ISO, which is the preferred range of a lot of photographers, I'm very fortunate with the Fujis. I can go to 6400 and get some fantastic work and nice film-like grain on the images. But that's said and done. You are in a situation where you are fully in control of the image that you want to create for the viewer. And that's what photography is all about. You want to create work that people are going to stop and look at it and say, I can see what that photographer was trying to do. Concentrate the image on a particular area. Lovely. It's got the depth of field just right for me, and it's pleasing work to look at. So I hope that's helped today. It's a it's so deep. I want to thank a couple of guys before I give you the book of the day, which I've got to grab in a minute. I've got to grab it. It's going to be quite an easy one, actually, which you're going to love, especially the landscape photographers of you out there. I just wanted to thank a couple of guys that sent some emails through to me. We've got some great work being shown on the Flickr site, the Flickr workgroup site. So you must try and take a check on this. Some great work coming through. I meant to get the actual site set up so that we can just have a look at it very quickly. I'm struggling to do that while we're talking, so just bear with me. But suffice to say, I'll come to that in a second with regards to the Flickr site, because there's some great images being put up there. I'm not going to critique them. It's not my place to do that, especially not in this particular show. I may start to do that later on when I get permission from them if they want to hear what I have to say. So if you're open to that, just put underneath your image, please critique, and I'll be happy to talk about the image how I see it. And I'm not going to be overextending myself on any major issues of it, but maybe a couple of points that I've spotted. But suffice to say, keep your images coming in, and we can have a look at that work. Also, I had a great comment made on the video last time out, where we were talking about shutter speed. We started to talk about sensor sizes and the way certain sensors are going to operate, and where the sweet spot of these sensors, you know, that range of 14 to 20 that I mentioned, which I think is ideal. The comment was a question as regards to, will it be like this in a few years' time? Who knows? Who knows? The sensors are going to get better and better as we go on, and the digital life carries on, and they're already producing 50 megapixel cameras, which are ideal for the landscape photographers. They're probably not suitable for those walking around doing street photography and that sort of nature, purely simply because of the nature of those particular cameras. That said and done, though, time will tell how those things go, and I really don't want to get into too much detail at this early stage with what I think is beginners watching this particular show to learn how to use their cameras. So we've done aperture, we've done shutter, and we've done manual. They're the basic modes of your camera. Yeah, there's program. I don't want you to use the professional mode now. From now on, it's a great one to, in actual fact, switch your camera to program if you're going to give the camera to someone else to take a photograph of you and your family, maybe. So as soon as you get it back, switch it back to one of those favored modes that you like to use. For me, it's normally aperture, but just recently I've been doing quite a lot of work setting the auto ISO and then manually changing aperture and shutter as I go out for walkabout. It's great to see what you can create, getting underexposed, overexposing your images, and then getting them back and looking at them in the Lightroom. I hope this short workshop has helped you out with regards to how manual works for your camera. It all goes back to the good old days when the guys used to go out where they used to have their light meter and they used to set their, they had the ISO was set because the film was in there and that was it. And they would set the aperture and they would set the shutter speed to get that balanced image of what they wanted to show. Remember, snow scenes, you want it overexposed. If you want to expose for the light, you really need to go underexposed so you get those shadows working. So the book for this week, Ansel Adams. It's a fantastic book, this one. Ansel Adams really is the renowned mono landscape photographer. He has done some color work, but the majority of all his work was mono, sorry. This man knew how to take mono photographs, landscape photographs in particular, using a viewfinder camera, and usually a 10x8 film camera with plates. He'd put them in, and then he'd do his processing and developing at home. Fantastic book for you to purchase. 400 photographs from Ansel Adams. Can't recommend it highly enough. All my books I can't highly recommend enough for you. So I hope you get this one. Let me just show you a couple of images very, very quickly. Classic example there of what I've just been talking to you about, of overexposure and underexposure. But a lot of his work, in actual fact, he was done a lot of work in the darkroom by cloning and not cloning, sorry, wrong word, by doing the dodging and burning rather in the Lightroom with certain instruments. Certainly nothing which I've got involved with myself. A couple of other images where Ansel Adams did his work. Great image there of the windmill. Can you see the slow shutter speed? Can you see the windmill, water mill probably going around there, and the other one on the other image of just a fence, but just great work. Super book to buy. Another one, quite a heavy book actually. Puts a bit of weight on the shelf, so you have to reinforce it. But anyway, Ansel Adams, 400 photographs is my book of the week for you guys to go out and look and buy. I hope my little short video has helped. Sorry, it's a little bit of a glitch to start off with, where we were talking about how the when I was trying to get onto the Pinterest site. But I hope my little brief demonstration of how the exposure works when you're using the manual mode on your camera. So that's it for this week. Thanks again for watching me. Get out there and shooting, and switch it to manual. Have a go, move the dials around, take the shot, and have a look at it in your Lightroom afterwards, and see what you like to see. You may like, in actual fact, overexposed shots. You may enjoy more an underexposed shot, and it's all about that. But one thing you must remember, you've created the image. You want to make sure that the person viewing that image knows what he's looking at and can see what you wanted to take. And that's the most important part. So next time, I think it's going to be composition. I can't remember. We'll talk about some composition, and then probably, I think, a couple of weeks I may sort of start setting some kind of assignments. So for those that have been entering into the Flickr site, let's hope you can send your assignments in on that. I'm going to go straight to the groups, and here we are. We've got 7 members now on the groups. I'll go to screen share. And you can see the work which is in actual fact being shown here now. One of my images which I just posted up, I've been using a Holga camera just recently, so it's an inciting work. That's totally different from what we were talking about today. Christopher Warren, photograph of a lady there through a cracked window. Car girl. Christopher Warren again, catching some street photography. Nice composition. Stephen Green, lovely underexposed shot here. And John, is that Ilko? I think so. On taking the photograph of a workshop. Light coming in from the right hand side and darker on the right hand side there, so he's really had to watch his settings there. Peter Beckett, nice interior shot there on the of an escalator, And another one, Peter grabbing a photograph of, obviously on the walkabout there by the looks of things. And is that Leadenhall Market? It looks like Leadenhall to me. Great use of shutter speed here, though, by Peter. Can you see the background blurred out, people moving? Great, but your concentration is on those two girls, two ladies taking photographs. One's checking her settings and the other one taking the shot. Two great shots there. And finally, The Bull Ring by Stephen Green. Perfect exposure into a dark black sky. So, hope you've enjoyed it, and keep the photographs coming on the Flickr site. Absolutely fantastic, guys. Thanks very much indeed for joining me. And do apologize for the little glitch. I hope that everything's recorded out. If I find that it hasn't, I'm going to have to do it all again, but that doesn't matter. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and we'll be talking soon. Bye for now.